What happens when the government makes a mistake, a really big one, that costs you everything? You think there would be justice, right? Well, today we're going to dig into a really strange legal idea from India's past. It's almost like a get-out-of-jail-free card for the government itself. This is a story about a merchant, a thief, and a law that put the state completely above the people it was supposed to protect.
So, just picture this. You're a totally legitimate businessman, minding your own business, and out of nowhere, because of a mistake, the authorities swoop in and take everything you've got. And then, once they finally realize they messed up and you're cleared, you go to get your property back, only to be told it's gone, stolen, while it was in their care. So what happens then?
To get the answer, we have to travel back in time to Meerut in 1947 and meet the man who found himself right in the middle of this unbelievable situation.
All right, so meet our main character, Kasturi Lal Ralia Ram Jain. He was a bullion merchant, which means he traded in precious metals like gold and silver. He's in the city of Meerut on just a regular business trip when suddenly 3 police officers arrest him. They thought he was dealing in stolen goods. The thing is, the accusation was completely baseless, but in that single moment, the damage was already done.
The police seized his gold, which was worth about 11,000 rupees. Now, I know that might not sound like a crazy amount of money today, but you have to understand, in 1947, that was an absolute fortune. This wasn't just a minor setback for Kasturi Lal. This was financially catastrophic. Okay, so pretty quickly, the authorities figure out, oops, we got the wrong guy, and they let Kasturi Lal go. You'd think he'd be relieved, right? Well, that feeling didn't last long. His real nightmare was just getting started.
He went straight to the police station to get back what was his. You know, the savings that were supposed to be kept safe in their custody. But it wasn't there. The gold had just vanished from the official police storage room.
And get this, the gold hadn't just been misplaced. No, it was stolen by a head constable, one of the police's own guys, right from the evidence room, the Makhana. And to make everything so much worse, the officer immediately took Kasturi Lal's life savings and fled to Pakistan. The state basically just threw up its hands and admitted it couldn't get it back.
So, Kasturi Lal did what any of us would do. He sued. He demanded that the State of Uttar Pradesh pay him back for his loss, a loss caused directly by the negligence of their own employee. But this was not going to be a quick fight. His battle for justice would drag on for almost 2 decades, winding its way all the way up to the Supreme Court of India.
So, how did the state respond? You'd think they would deny the theft, right? Nope. In court, they didn't deny any of the facts. Instead, they pulled out this incredibly powerful, centuries-old legal defense. They brought up something called sovereign immunity. It's a really old legal idea that came from British law, and the basic thinking behind it is the king can do no wrong. Now, in a modern democracy, that means the government can't be sued for wrongful things its employees do. But, and this is a big but, only if those employees were performing an essential government duty. So the state's entire defense came down to this one distinction you see right here. The law split all government actions into 2 big buckets. On one side, you have sovereign functions. These are the core jobs of governing, like defense or policing. For these, the state claimed it was totally immune. But on the other side were non-sovereign functions, stuff like running a business. For those, the state agreed, yeah, it could be held liable, just like anyone else. And this really shows you the difference. Policing, defending the nation, collecting taxes, those are all classic sovereign functions where the state gets a pass. But if the government was, say, running a railway or trading goods and something went wrong, you could absolutely sue them. Kasturi Lal's entire case came down to a single question. Was seizing and storing his gold a sovereign function? So, after nearly 17 years, the case finally gets to the Supreme Court of India. They're ready to give the final verdict. The facts of the case were crystal clear. Kasturi Lal was wronged, and an employee of the state was the one responsible. So what was the court going to do? Was it going to prioritize justice for the individual, or was it going to uphold the state's ancient legal shield? The court's answer was just devastating for Kasturi Lal. They ruled that when the police arrested him and took his property, they were exercising sovereign powers, that core government duty of maintaining law and order. And because of that, the state was completely immune from any liability. And here's the really tragic part. In its own judgment, the court said they felt a lot of sympathy for Kasturi Lal. They acknowledged the horrible injustice he'd suffered,
But they said their hands were tied. The legal doctrine of sovereign immunity was the law of the land, and they couldn't just ignore it. Kasturi Lal lost his case, and with it, he lost his fortune.
So why on earth are we still talking about a case from decades ago? Well, because its impact was so much bigger than just one man's heartbreaking loss.
The Kasturi Lal verdict became this huge, really controversial landmark in Indian law because it shined a giant spotlight on a massive gap in protection for everyday citizens. Just think about it for a second. If the state, at its most powerful, can negligently destroy your life and then face zero consequences, what real protection do you actually have? It's a problem that courts are still trying to figure out today.
And that leaves us with this huge, essential question. Look, the state needs certain powers to function, to maintain order and keep us all safe. We get that. But when using that power harms an innocent citizen, where do we draw the line? The story of Kasturi Lal forces us all to think about that difficult balance, a question that is just as relevant today as it was way back in 1947.